This Indaba building resilience and competitiveness of MSMEs and cooperatives in the context of the Africa continental free trade area is extremely important. And I want to also put it very clear that there will be no Africa free trade area market for you seated here if you are not producing goods and services that are consumable in the domestic market. That's very important. I was touring the stands there, and one of the stand colleagues was explaining to me how they are working to focus on the Africa market. I said Africa starts with Zambia. You need to look at the domestic market as well, practice your trade here, polish the quality of your product here, make your product competitive and really consumable by anyone else on the continent. Because we, your next door neighbors, are able to consume the product. I am not saying that all products are for the domestic market. That's not what I'm saying. And I think my explanation ought to be understood correctly. So it is very important that we consider, we practice, we engage with the domestic market whenever possible, and we also engage in the next step towards the Africa Free Trade Area. The next step for us is 8+1 neighbors that we have. The SADC region, COMESA region, as building blocks to conquer or to enter the total Africa market, and of course beyond. And when we say the Africa market, we are not saying if your products, services are competitive and they're consumable by someone outside Africa, they should be restricted to Africa. In the same way, they must be available for all across the world. I must also continue by saying, Madam Mahama, it is important to address this issue where Africa trades least with itself. This is the only continent that trades the least with itself. Even when you want to trade within Africa, within the neighborhood, many times you have to trade through a platform outside Africa. And I'm glad you're talking about developing platforms on the continent to facilitate trade within our regions and our continent. And many times, just the trade facilitation, the platforms, African countries pay in billions in transaction fees to platforms owned, managed outside Africa, essentially exporting the much needed capital away from the people, yourselves, and the countries that need the capital the most. So those distortions we must continue working on in order to create an environment that facilitates trade on our continent. And I'm talking about, for my sins of the past, I'm talking about profitable trade. I'm not talking about philanthropy here. I'm talking about commercial, successful trade anchored on quality products, services, competent, durable, with packaging that is attractive. And I want to commend delegates, those who are exhibiting outside there, that the packaging I've seen this year is greatly improved, and I think we must appreciate it. I'll give you an example of what a bee does, right? Honeybee. What it does, it goes around to collect the raw materials to make the honey. uses sense of smell to locate the raw materials, flowers, nectar. Let me use another word for nectar. Fluids, right? Sense of smell, but also the flowery nature of where that nectar is attracts the bee, isn't it? Otherwise it will fly off. And as you know, the trees, the plants that produce the nectar, they need the bee in order to pollinate, if you like, itself and others of the similar species. I'm sending a message here, very small example, the attractiveness of the flower, smell, nice scent of the nectar, and the flower invites the bee to get to that flower. And that tree which produces that flower nectar needs the bee to pollinate itself, basically produce or to fertilize. The attraction in packaging should never be underrated. It's very important. The scent, if you are producing perfumes like one of the exhibitors,